All right, we have Chad Simmons here on college football addiction, Georgia Tech beat writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Chad, thank you for joining me today. What's the mood there in Atlanta around Georgia Tech football, coming off of a season that I think they maybe overperformed a bit last year? But what's the mood right now?
It's pretty hype, man. I mean, from inside the locker room to outside of the fan base, there's a renewed energy and a renewed spirit. If you talk about the fan base, I get the sense that people maybe a little bit on the fence last year, right? I mean, they hired a guy who was an interim coach the year before. Yeah, he's an alum, but how's it going to look? And he met expectations, if not surpassed them, by going 7-6, winning a bowl game. Plus, sort of his energy and his passion for the institute. Like, he lives and breathes white and gold. He loves Georgia Tech through and through. He despises Georgia, which a lot of people love. So I think that's number one. And then number two, from inside the locker room, like the changes he's made and, from the program standards to the coaching staff to bringing in a higher level of talent to winning football games to all the talent they have coming back. I mean, yeah, people expect this team to be pretty good in 2024.
That's a perfect transition to this. What are the expectations like? I looked up the Vegas over under win total, and maybe not the best news there at like 5.5. But
Yeah.
do they think they're significantly better than that, or is just like a game better? If they get to 6, that I think they pretty much hit there. But if they get to 7, is that are they happy with that, or do they really need to kind of be up above that pretty significantly at like around 8?
I think if Georgia Tech finishes 6-6 and goes to another bowl game, I think everybody will be okay with that, right? But I think the hope is they can be a lot better than that. I mean, with so much talent coming back on offense, with the changes they made in the defensive staff, they finished tied for 4th last year in the ACC. It's not like this was a bottom feeder team. So they expect to be competing for that ACC championship. Maybe not to make the ACC title game, but to be in that discussion in November. I mean, I think this is a program that wants to get back to that 8, 9, 10 win level, like they were in the Paul Johnson era. And they have the pieces to do it. They think they have the right coach to do it. So I don't think Georgia Tech fans are just going to twiddle their thumbs and be happy with a 6-6 or a 7-6 or even an 8-5. I mean, I think they expect to raise that win total and start to be considered amongst the top tier of ACC football teams.
When I look at the tiers, that's a great point. When I spoke with somebody this week, and when I look at the tiers, it does obviously it feels like a Florida State, Clemson at the top, and then maybe Miami and NC State and Louisville kind of hanging out in that next bunch, and then you kind of have Georgia Tech, maybe Virginia Tech in there that are kind of question marks. And so to me, they almost feel like tier 3-ish, right? Like in that tier 3, and then I think you kind of maybe UNC's up there, but then I feel like you've got everybody else, right? Maybe SMU's a team that we'll see how they translate. They could be in that. I don't think they're tier 2, but they could be kind of competing in that tier 3. But yeah, if Georgia Tech can get up into that tier 2, right? Like I don't know that they could get to Florida State, Clemson level, but if they could get into that tier 2 of like fighting for things to break right and be competitive with the NC States and the Miamis and SMU, Virginia Tech, certainly, that'd be a pretty good spot for them. It all starts with the quarterback, and Haynes King had some good moments last year. What is the ceiling for his play this year?
It's pretty high up there. I mean, the kid had a pretty good year last year. Now he threw way too many interceptions. Not all were his fault, but they still go in that stat column under his name. So he's got to take care of the ball better. He just has to become that next level quarterback in terms of NFL teams starting to think, wow, is this a kid we could draft? He has 2 years of eligibility left, but if he has a good year this year, excuse me, I think he's a kid that could go in the NFL draft. He's taken that next step in terms of leadership in this program, not just on offense, but for the entire program. Chris Winkie, the quarterback's coach, you guys know, Buster Faulkner, the offensive coordinator, Brent Key, they sing his praises nonstop, that they really think this is a special kid who could take this team to the next level. So he knows it. He's not shying away from it. He worked on the offseason in consistency and footwork to try to be a better quarterback in terms of throwing the ball and accuracy and cutting down the interceptions and those things. But I also think he's almost like an assistant coach on the field at this point. I mean, the kid's been in the program this will be his 2nd year, but he's an older kid. He's a Texas A&M graduate. He has a degree, a graduate degree from Georgia Tech as well. He joked that he spent the summer as an intern under Chris Winkie. So, I mean, the kid lives and breathes football. And if Georgia Tech's going to take a step to the next tier, like we just talked about, he's going to be the one to have to lead them there.
What's your biggest concern with this team? Where could they potentially get tripped up?
Defense, man. I mean, the defense was bad last year. It couldn't stop anybody, especially on the run, on third downs. That's why they brought in Tyler Santucci to be the new defensive coordinator, who was at Duke. Brought in Jess Simpson to coach the defensive line, who was at Duke. A new cornerbacks coach, a new linebackers coach. I mean, ran the gamut to try to change this defense around. Brought in some high level transfers as well on that side of the ball. We just don't know how good they're going to be because I haven't played anybody yet, right? I mean, you can see them in practice and you can see them go against Georgia Tech's offense, in drills. But when they face a Florida State, when they face a Louisville, an NC State, some of these, high tiered teams, how are they going to fare in these games? Can they stop anybody? Are they going to play 45 to 42 shootouts again in 2024? So that's the concern for me is if this defense can be marginally better, I think this Georgia Tech team takes a step. But we just don't know because we haven't seen him play to anybody. How are they going to adapt to Tyler Santucci's system and his coaching style and his way of doing things? Will these transfers fit in to this program and to this clubhouse? It's a big question mark going forward. If they can't stop anybody, they're going to be looking at that 5-win, 6-win total like we talked about earlier.
The game probably nationally that gets the most run when it comes to laughing back at the 2023 season. You already know where I'm going. Is that Miami game? And it's something that Georgia Tech social media has certainly embraced. It's something that has, continued to be a punchline. I mean, I've seen, people, content creators around college football's new video game talking about the kneel down formation. And so, something that certainly has lived on, but if there was one game, maybe outside of Georgia, right, to be the rivalry, if there was one game that Georgia Tech could pencil in and say like, this is going to be a win, we're going to win this, we need this win. Is it following up on beating Miami again? Is it beating Florida State to open the year again? I know the Georgia one would be big at the end of the year, but one game outside of that I think means a little bit more to Georgia Tech this year.
I'm going to peg that NC State game that Georgia Tech has on a Thursday night at home. If Georgia Tech is in the midst of taking that next step, if they're in the hunt for an ACC championship game berth or even maybe a fourth place finish or a third place finish, NC State's a program that has been so solid, right, in recent years and has had a really good team. And you get them at home on Thursday night on a national TV audience. If you're in the hunt, to make the postseason or to make the championship game or to maybe even enter the top 25 rankings, to me, that's a game that shows Georgia Tech has taken that next step. I think they can beat a team like North Carolina. I think they could, beat a team like Miami and the Dukes of the world. But playing NC State at home and matching up with that crew, in November on a Thursday night, I think that would be a big feather in Georgia Tech's cap in 2024.
What is your hottest take or boldest prediction for this 2024 season for the Tech?
They're going to be better than ninth. They were picked to finish ninth in the ACC preseason poll. I'm not buying that. I mean, I'm not going to go out here and say they're going to win the ACC championship or even make the ACC title game. But with everything they have coming back and being around the program, this offseason, the spring, the summer, now into fall camp, I find it hard to believe they're going to finish ninth in a 17-team conference. Now, I know they have a tough schedule. We've talked about it. Louisville, Notre Dame, Georgia, Florida State, NC State, at Virginia Tech. I mean, they got a tough road ahead. I just find it hard to believe that they, after finishing tied for fourth last year with everything they have coming back, they would slip all the way back down to ninth. So, I don't know how much of a big-time hot take that is, but I could see this team finish maybe as high as fourth, but maybe no lower than sixth.
Chad, where can people follow you? Where can they find more of your work?
At Mr. Chad Bishop on Twitter. I will always call it Twitter forever and ever.
Yeah.
And and on Instagram. So just at Mr. Chad Bishop and ajc.com/Georgia Tech.
Awesome. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah.